Welcome back, everyone, to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing? What a crazy week. Unbelievable what's been going on. So let's just recap a little. New Speaker of the House voted in, Mike Johnson. That same day, that same night, there was this MK Ultra main shooter, this guy running around right in time. And then right after Mike Johnson got voted in, he basically pledged his support to Israel, and then Israel started to escalate. And so all these chain of events, very interesting. Now, Mike Johnson, it's an interesting thing. He instantly caused a lot of division. But then when he got voted in, the mainstream legacy media, the deep state controlled media, instantly went after this guy. And so that's one of the things that you go, oh, okay, wait a second, this guy might be on the good side. He might be a patriot, right? So we have to wait and see. I mean, he's already kind of saying some of the right things. It's, this idea of like, not allocating all of this money over to Ukraine is really what it's about. But continuing to fund and support Israel, that's a big part in the United States. And then you got this guy running around in Maine doing damage, and it coming out that, he was trained in the Army as a firearms expert and all this stuff. And then he went off the rails and they had to put him into a psychiatric ward. And he was claiming then, I guess it was that he was hearing voices, okay? And then he goes off and does this thing. And then instantly in the online communities, it came out with all of the different shooters, all of these so-called random acts of all of these people, how mentally ill they were, how they all spent time in a facility, and how they were hearing voices, okay? And then this old clip of this professor in the United States somewhere, I can't remember where he was, demonstrating his home-built psychotronic emitter, his high frequency, high amplitude emitter that enables him to transmit music into people's heads directly. And he demonstrated it in this class, right? And I've known this stuff for a while. We've all known this stuff, but it's coming out, right? And that kind of dialogue needs to take place because there's no coincidence here. It's no coincidence. And we know this. Everyday people don't know this. Oh man. And then the escalation with Israel and what we saw yesterday in London, with the massive pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protest. And if that's not a wake-up call, I don't know what will be. I mean, the world is so divided, and the people that are creating all of it are this, like, in some ways are all agreed upon. This is a deep state effort, and you see this like with this protest in London, especially London, because one guy was showing just how much this was organized, like immensely organized. So who's organizing these things? We know who's organizing them. George Soros Open Foundation, very open about being pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli actions and all this stuff. And all of the communists and all the socialist groups and everything, they all were out in full force. And it's like the division is here, and people are saying, like in the UK, it's like, wow, whatever is going on in the world, the battle is on our home front. It's right now. Saw a report and some information around demographics in London and in UK, where in London, I guess they think that the population has reached about 7% Muslim. And so part of Islamic fundamental revolutionary theory, same as socialist Marxist revolutionary theory, revolves around the idea of saturating a population to approximately 9 to 10%. Once that's done, the first phase of it is play nice, get along, try to integrate as best you can. But once that saturation level has hit, that's when action starts to take place, and people start to become unruly and rioting. And I mean, we've already been seeing this, but this is part of their game plan. Okay. And I get it. There's like a lot of people that aren't fundamentalists, that aren't extremists, but it is the extremist factions that have the most sway over the people. And people in the Western world, us in Canada and the UK and the United States and stuff, especially living in fairly decent areas and stuff, that we don't realize like how inflammatory and how brutal and how violent some of these places these people come from. And the rule of power and the rule of force is what decides. And this is what we're seeing. This is definitely what we're seeing. And people need to wake up. Yesterday was the full moon and an eclipse moon, kind of the same thing. A lot of aspects of war, Scorpio, Taurus. It was a Taurus full moon. Sun's in Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, partly, and Pluto, the transformer. But Mars is the planet of war. Pluto, being the planet of transformation, is kind of interesting. One of the co-rulers of Scorpio. The transformation that comes from Pluto is always for the good. It's a transformative process that needs to take place. And in a way, the Tower card kind of speaks of that. Like when the Tower is in a positive position, an aspect positively with other cards, it also talks about that, where the tearing down and the destruction that occurs with the Tower is a necessary function in rebuilding and building back up. So that's kind of energetically, that's what's happening. Like a lot of this stuff has to come to the surface. A big thing that people need to sort of, I guess, realize when that's the case, or what we're dealing with, is that all aspects of society, including you and me and everything, are weaponized, are mobilized in that effort. But we know what the agenda is. We know what the game plan of these guys are. It's to create a world governance system, and it's to completely lock us down forever, okay? We have to sort of understand this. They want to depopulate us. They want to shift fundamentally the human foundation, the human template, over to their own vision. They being the globalist, World Economic Forum, Davos Group, deep state, controlled governments via the intelligence community, the military industrial complex, and the corporate entities that have commingled, and big tech and big pharma and that, right? That's what the deep state is. And they operate fluidly back and forth between each other. That is a form of fascism, and it's a form of totalitarianism that my ancestors fought World War II against. It's what we've been battling the whole time. What else was there? There was that one guy from Switzerland who was the son of one of the co-founders of the World Economic Forum, who was a partner with Klaus Schwab. And he came out basically as a whistleblower and saying, no, we don't want these people in our country. This is criminal. They have a very genocidal and anti-human agenda that they're implementing. So that's good. That's good news, right? And that's what we got to keep sticking with. Got to realize, like, man, the World Economic Forum and these globalists, these scumbag totalitarians, these deep staters, they're on full, everything is being deployed right now. Their full propaganda campaign is being implemented. They're really pushing climate change, climate crisis. This they will not let go of it. As there's more information that comes out, like US Auto Group, I think it might have been a big company that came out saying that, yeah, the EV thing is failed, and there's a number of reasons why, and it's failing all over the world. It's not going to fly. There was a bunch of wind farm projects supposed to be implemented in Europe, and I think in Europe and maybe even in the States or something, but they're not viable, right? All of the research that's for the last 20, 30 years is coming out, basically saying that renewable energy is not efficient at all. In fact, it is doing more damage to the environment. And it's a complete scam, right? But they are fully putting this out there. The other thing too is with AI, and AI being inserted in every aspect of technology. This is another one that they keep pushing and pushing. And then also on the back burner, they're trying with their failed COVID agenda, trying to get people to get boosted up. And right, so they're pushing. They really are pushing as we get distracted by the war, the part of that fifth generational scenario where an active, conventional, modern war is taking place, and maybe like, non-conventional in the sense of, well, I mean, the Israeli thing is an asymmetrical scenario. Yeah, it's sad. I'm not gonna, I'll be honest, I feel like I've failed. I feel that in some ways we have failed in not preventing some of this. But that's a silly thought. It's so big, it's so beyond one person or 10,000 people or 10 million people even. This is the planet, right? But yet, I think a lot of us are feeling that. And this is the days that we're in. So can't get discouraged. We got to kind of keep the vibes up. We got to keep the inspiration levels up, right? So we got to keep going on, right? Okay, so today what we're going to do is just going to take a look. What are we looking at for the next couple weeks? I guess we're going to look at the month. Next couple weeks, see what comes up. What does November have in store for us? Is there anything that we need to be prepared for? What are we going to see? What kind of guidance do we need to hear? So it's interesting, man. I mean, I've been doing this channel for maybe 3 months or so, and a lot of readings, we get a lot of these pages. We get a lot of these court cards in like prime locations. And man, the court cards are sometimes really tricky to read. For me, and I think a lot of readers feel this way, they get caught by it because on one level, the court cards they do represent actual people, okay? So it can represent a person or a group of people, but it's also an energy, right? It's kind of an energy that we utilize and move through, right? So with this card, the Page of Wands in the present, so this is past, present, future. This guy, this is a youthful energy, right? And it's that will, that creative fire that's within us, and a part of our spiritual awareness, the fire within, right? He or she, because that could be both, right? These, especially the pages, can be both female and male. Now, do you remember, I guess it was last year, when the Algerian kid in France was shot by a police officer or something, and how that created a whole phase of rioting, and it was kind of a beginning of this where we saw a lot of people from the Muslim world that had been living in France or whatever emerging on the streets and creating a lot of havoc, right? But then simultaneously, about maybe a year before that, or even 6 months, there was a movie that came out on Netflix, shot in France. It was a French movie called Athena, which was basically, the plot started with the death of a young Algerian kid or something, right? And I'm pretty sure it's like specific, that sparked a socialist revolution, and it's unbelievable. And so that's something that, like things like that might come out. There might be some other incidents. This also is something like what they've been utilizing, like you're destroying our families, like both sides putting out information, and we don't know what is real and what isn't, right? But this is what they're doing, is they're using the propaganda war against the people. And that might be something that comes out like full on, like, holy cow, this was created, kind of like, part of the Iraqi invasion and the weapons of mass destruction and how there were none. This I also kind of got where, because he's testing, he's like using the pole as a measuring gauge, right? If you look at what it looks like. And so like the testing is over. The testing period is over. These guys are full on, like Agenda 2030 is going right now. And part of it is a global war, and they're moving us towards it, man. That's what's happening. They're positioning everything, and once things start to get once it triggers, it starts to get out of our hands. This is what I was saying. It's like it's being directed outward now. So, but it's still up to us to point this out, to communicate this, to reach out as best as we can, right? Because we need to watch these guys like a hawk, because they're getting away with it how they've been getting away with it for a long time. And I know people don't want to hear that. I mean, because we keep getting, yes, we are winning, but there's also parts of this agenda that are being implemented, and it's working in certain places. So we need to be aware of it in order to stop it. Okay? That's pure and simple. This is what happened in 9/11. 9/11 in North America shut down people. It was the beginning of censorship. And it's happened so quick, man. Anybody that spoke out against what was being projected in the mainstream was instantly censored, instantly shoved out of the public discourse. And what we've been seeing for the last 6 years or whatever, this idea of debanking and a hidden social credit system, it started to eke in. And it's all, oh man, this is what we are battling. This is what we want to not see, right? So part of their whole agenda was to create this system of censorship and indoctrinating and inoculating people in their minds with the idea that the state and these interest groups and the platforms and whoever runs all of this stuff needs to censor me, needs to protect me, needs to control what I think and how I behave. And that's right. So past, right, we've got this, that's what they've been working on. But we've also have been working on dismantling it. And so their plan has been frazzled, man. Like 3 years ago, this is why we're seeing so much being pushed ahead, is because that's when the real shadow war started. That's when the elements within their own deep state infrastructure started to rebel against them. And that's what we have been seeing. And we have to be mindful of it. The truth has to prevail. It has to come forward, right? So their plan has been disrupted. That's why it's so chaotic and so wild. So if anybody for people that have been following me for the last 3 months, I have been saying quite steadily that they want a war. They're gonna get a war. They're gonna try to spark it somehow, some way. Once Ukraine fails and the narrative flips, they're gonna move on and try to create a bigger conflict. And I mean, the perfect area, this is a perfect place to start it. They want to implement this form of tribalism we see in every country. They want it in the Western world, especially. So the Western world is the bastion against this form of tribalism and this decrepit lethargy that we see, and violence and corruption, right? Because it all begets themselves. Like they all create the scenario, right? And so they want to level the field. They want the third world in the Western world, and it's happening. It's happening, and I hope you like it. I hope we all like it, because it's there. What are you going to do about it? That's what you got to ask yourself. No matter what stage of life or where you sit, this is, I mean, I've read a lot of history around World War II, and man, these same kind of people report afterward, like, it's just normal people. Oh man, when they started taking us all away and shipping us and stealing all our stuff and they killing all our people, I realized there was something wrong, and it was too late. And that's, wow, are we at that stage? I don't know. You got to decide, right? We have to decide on this stuff. We have to talk about it. Yeah, it's a big play that they've got going on here. Biden even said it when this first started to kind of happen. He said, oh yeah, the United States can fight a two-front war. That's what they want. That's what they're implementing. And we already know. We know what the scenario details. Like, I mean, we saw with this escalation, the US brought in carrier groups into the Persian Gulf or into the Mediterranean area, and airstrikes in Syria. Okay. It's the step towards war. Fighting the proxy groups in Syria from Iran and directly involving Iran, right? The other one they always talk about is China, right? It's this China-Russia alliance thing. And so that's what they want to do, is they want to flip it back and forth to create this scenario where we get pushed into a wider conflict, the Western world. And thus it breaks apart some of the old infrastructure and they can rebuild it. And I seen this when it started to happen. Was part of their agenda is like creating this world scenario where it's very similar. Like you have areas that are like Israel and you have areas that are like Palestine, and the vast majority of those other parts of the world that are like Palestine, that will be the majority. And it will be just this isolated islands of this type of high-tech, modern, smart country, smart city scenario. Like, it's difficult. I could see why people are having incredibly difficult time with this stuff. I can also see how social revolutions happen. I can see how Nazi Germany happened. I can see how the Soviet Union was formed. I can see how the Khmer Rouge got into power. I can see how the Iranian Revolution happened and how all of those things, how the people willingly went along and let parts of it take place. I can see it now. Whereas before, it wasn't so clear. You always ask the question, like, how did people in Nazi Germany allow this to happen? Holy moly. Well, you're living it. It's been diffused into the entire area of society. In fact, we might be eating human parts or bugs or something that is unhuman, right? Like horrifying. Or, euthanasia project, that's a big one. The trans agenda is another one where they're like malforming people and sterilizing them. It wasn't just the Nazis that did it, it was the British Empire. They did insidious things too. Japanese during World War II. Oh man, it goes on and on and on. I mean, any of these dictators, any of these totalitarians, that's what they do, right? And so we're living it. We're living in it. They say, what, 17 million people died of vaccine injury and COVID, but it's the vaccine. How many aborted babies since the 60s? Upwards to 80 million to 100 million. Man, that's like World War II numbers. So we can see it, right? Same with the COVID shots. People just went along. They just fell in line. So what else are we going to see, I guess, in the next week or the next couple weeks? What do we need to hear that's going to help us? Something that's extremely disappointing to people. So that's coming up. More war, escalation. They keep pumping like, oh, there's going to be, oh, the ground invasion. Oh, and I mean, we are going to see probably that, but yet it's like in stops and starts. And it's just, it's kind of like what I was saying. It's the fifth generational war, the propaganda war. And it doesn't necessarily always reflect what's actually going on in the real world, right? So that's kind of a deal. Yeah, maybe the United States, because like part of the deep state plan is to create this polarized world, this multipolar world, but isolate the Western world, and particularly the United States and Israel, I guess, right? And that's kind of what's taking place. And that's maybe what we'll see is like especially for the States or something, there maybe an ally is going to say no more. I'm not like a big one. And maybe there's further breakups in that chain. I kind of get that too. There's something there where, because you got to understand this deep state war, it also is part of the economics and what we're kind of seeing with China and Russia and all that. It's not working. It's not going to work. It's not supposed to work. And I don't trust China or Russia. Never have. Don't think I ever will. I don't think anybody should. These are also genocidal maniacs. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what kind of dialogue. And this is what we've seen. Is they're playing all sides. And like Putin could be one of them. Who knows? Until, certain conditions are reached, to me, is really no different than Biden, okay? And same with China. There is no siding with the totalitarians. I mean, that's what we saw in World War II. These double-dealing, lying organizations, and they betray each other. And that's what we're seeing. It's like Ukraine is like World War II 2.0. Nazis and the communists. Oh, great. The Western world wasn't in the Eastern Front. It was the Nazis versus the commies. And that kind of template is being applied to the United States right now. And so we're seeing like the deep state versus the deep state. You have the corrupted deep state run Western world against the terroristic fundamentalist Islamic world. It's the same deal. And so for people on the outside of it, I don't want to take part in any of it. I want nothing to do with either of it. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And the more that situation gets pushed, I don't want nothing to do with anybody that's pushing any form of this agenda. And I'm of the nature man, you got get rid of them. And that's what you might start to see is some of these illegals that are especially in Europe, they might start deporting them. That's another part of it, right? But yet it's just talk. And it's just to appease people and to placate their desires. Oh yeah, there was some guy that got charged for racism for waving around the flag of St. George, the English flag, in England. How is that racist? It's not. So what, you just gonna sit down and take it, or are you gonna push back? And that's what we need to do. We need to push back and you can't appease it. I mean, Canadians are so part of that appeasement thing. That's what we do, right? So just, we can't appease it anymore in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, we might see some of that pushback, but they have implemented it. It's starting to happen. And so people on our end that aren't jumping in one side or the other, and this is what we're seeing, like on the internet, is how much information, what is actually taking place behind the scenes, what are they trying to cover up, what's actually going on, right? Like with Biden especially, and all of the information that's been coming up, right? And so we'll see with this House Speaker. Maybe the House Speaker proves to be not as good as everybody wants or something. Because I got that too. I mean, that was the thing, right? That's what threw people off, is that he was kind of playing both sides. Yeah, something big's coming, man. Something big. This guy here, this is an investor. This could be like an Elon Musk type character or somebody. It's kind of who I'm seeing. This is somebody that wields a lot of financial, obviously, a lot of clout in the material world. But he's breaking a major deal. There's something that's being broken up that sort of unravels a lot of stuff, man. And I don't know if it's necessarily for the good, right? It's kind of part of what pushes us closer to serious conflict in the world, like a global war, right? And it's being done right now. Remember what I was saying about the energy, though, about how there needs to be a transformation, but it's for the good. So I think that's what we're going to see, and that's what we've seen in the last week. It's just like, this is dire. But that's part of the illusion. It's to keep us inactive. It's to keep us sort of susceptible to all of this. And so we got to kind of recognize that whatever kind of comes up, it's part of that. Oh, okay, I'm kind of getting this. Okay, so there's some information. Maybe this has to do with Elon. Because I mean, the same thing is going on with Trump too, right? Where they're bringing up all of these people, witnesses and whistleblowers and stuff like that, and they're proving to be totally false. Maybe that's part of it too, is like exposing the lies of these people. And I kind of got that with the reading, the first spread of the Gaza Israel thing right now, and just pushing both sides, pushing propaganda, pushing lies, and that coming out, and like how people are being sort of hooked with like this idea of like, you're coming after my kids, oh my God, I'm gonna lose it, right? But it has a negative impact as well when it's not based on reality, right? And that, wow. So information coming out that they've been using that against us. That's super important, right? I do kind of get that there's something big coming, like I said, though, too. Yeah, this thing with the EV is a big deal, man. That's going to shift a lot. I think that might be part of it, right? And kind of this attempt to kind of maybe get manufacturing back into North America and Europe. That would be a positive thing. But see, regardless, we got to be this guy here, in like the Four of Cups, and being in that meditative space, in that spiritual space, and not sort of being pulled both ways, or being pulled one way or the other. And we have to kind of see that middle path within us. We are the light that is there to shine upon the corruption and the darkness and the evil that these guys are perpetuating. We can't forget that. And we're here to be the peacemakers. We are here to create healing and well-being for the human family. And we have to stay on that track. So don't lose sight of that, and stay on your path. Remember, we're all in this together. We're here for each other, and everything's gonna work out. It really is. Okay, everybody, that's enough for today. There's a lot of stuff came up. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please like the video, leave a comment, share, and wherever you are, take care, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.